Salami, we're gonna do super colorful art today. Hello there, this is Tamil, and I will just go over a little bit of the process, how I made specific. Oh, oh, yeah, okay. Some decisions that I made in my process, see how you can learn from it. If you want to get inspired and you want to use the same, go ahead. And there's going to be also an article in the description going over the same things, and hopefully it will be cool to watch. I haven't made a video in like 4 months, I think, so I'm really rusty, and I hope that it will be nice to watch. And let's get into this. First of all, I usually start with a gray tone, so I don't like working with really white backgrounds like this, especially if I am painting at night. Then I do my sketch, a simple round brush. So if you go into the brushes, and if you go into here, the round mixing brush is the super simple brush that I worked with, and I highly recommend just keeping it simple. A lot of times people recommend getting the pencil, which is nice, but for me it's a little bit too textured and it's a little bit too thin. So I like really bold strokes. After that, I pick my colors. For example, here is Canva. I just went to color wheel section, and it's so easy to use. I highly recommend checking it out. This will not replace your kind of color theory knowledge, but it's really nice to go over and see the basics. For example, it's gonna show you complementary colors. So those are the colors that are opposite of each other, and you can move around with this little wheel. It's like there's monochromatic, analogous, triadic, which is what I specifically used. So because they're all so far apart, this provides high contrast color scheme, and I decided to limit my color palette to this. So yellow is probably the hardest color you can always get, because it's really easy to go into like a dark yellow vomit green, which is really be careful with that one. So I always pick the yellow that I want, and everything else kind of will fall together. So literally what I did, I just took a screenshot and I put it in Clip Studio Paint, which is super easy to do. You can just go into Clip Studio Paint and go into File, Import, and there's a photo library, and in here you can literally just click and you're gonna get yourself the colors that you just had. Here I just color picked it and I went a little bit darker. So this was the original color. I went to a little bit towards blue, a little bit below to saturate, and then I painted on top of this. So that is what I did. So I basically got one shade, two shade, three colors of the same, three colors of the same, three colors of the same, and I just kept it on top of the canvas for myself to remember what colors I'm using. A lot of times you don't have to follow that formula exactly, but you know, it depends on what you prefer. So that's why I went with the purple, because it is part of this dark color scheme. And another thing to remember is it's not going to be 30%, 33, 33, 33. That's probably not the right amount. There we go. So it's not going to be equal. It's better to do kind of 60, 30, 10. Have one color that is the main. So I would probably go this is as my main. In certain cases, this is going to be my darkest parts, because that's a purple, and yellow for highlights. So you can use this like 10-15%, because you want to give that pop at the end. This is going to be main, so it's going to be probably like the 60% of the image is going to be all blue, and dark, like really dark parts will be, you know, like 30-ish if I can spell that, 30-ish% is gonna be this one. So the math is completely off, and I'll probably get an F for my math class, but I did finish my art degree, so that counts. For most of this illustration is I just went to the ink button, and I just went with the G pen, and as you can see, I did a yellow for the clothes, red for hair, red for the dress, and purple for the skin. It kind of looks like a superhero outfit at this point, which I really enjoyed. And later I decided on the color for the background. So if you go back to the colors, we had that cyan. So most of the scene, I decided to keep it cyan and just make it all kind of bluish. And on top of this, I kept adding things over. So I go with shading. So I decided to add shade here, and most of the time I just clean things up. So clean up the line work, add one tone of shading. I decided to add this like little highlight around her and around everything she's touching, so to give it more pop and contrast. Since we're already into this super contrasty style, you can see that I just added this outline. And on top of this, I decided to add a little bit of color to the walls, darker blue, and this one a little bit more green, so that there's at least kind of variety in the color, especially for the walls. If you want to go a little bit more fancier, which is what I did, I just went ahead and made a new layer. I selected a chunk that I want to change, so let's say if it's gonna be this one, for example. And I'm gonna go ahead into the layer, new correction layer, hue, saturation, luminosity. Let's do like super dark and saturated and dark, and I click OK, and it will automatically make a mask for that specific part, so you don't have to worry about this. And obviously you can adjust the mask if you just use an eraser. On top of this, I also decided to add a little bit of halftone, little dots over here, which I think makes it more comic book, a little bit more graphic. Very quickly, I just use an airbrush. If you use an airbrush like this, like it's gonna make everything darker, right? And right here in the layer property, you can find that in the window layer property right here. If you don't see it, there's gonna be different buttons here, and the second one is gonna be halftone, so it automatically adds a halftone for you. There's many settings. I did cover it in some other video I've made like a long time ago, but I like to just push it all the way up to maybe 10% so you can actually see it. And in here you can see use brightness of the image, and I play around with the blending mode. So in here I can go into overlay, and it's gonna give this a cool kind of effect, or I can go into multiply to make it more harsh. And the nice thing is, because we use the airbrush, that makes it kind of like the bigger dots turn into smaller dots, and so there's a gradation to this. And I really like overlay for these kinds of things, especially in here. We can go ahead and go another mask if you really want to edit this, and we can go into the soft, and I can go ahead and start removing things that I don't want. Like, I don't like it on her shoe, I don't like it on her seat, I don't like it on her arms, and that's it. And this way you get yourself like a really nice halftone effect, which is not going to be too overwhelming, and it adds a nice texture. Especially for this painting that I'm making here, I'm not using any textured brushes, I'm not using pencil brushes, I'm literally using just a G pen, so everything is going to be very clean and even, so you want to add that variety to your painting. The next thing I did was add a little bit to the silhouette. As you can see, the silhouette is like this, so it just goes into here, and this kind of blends in together. There's a nice triangle here, but this whole part is all kind of the same, and so I just went ahead and moved her leg a little bit down. Plus I think my anatomy was just a little off, and so by adding this little triangle here, that makes it more interesting and helps you distinguish her legs from one another. Things you can do to improve your painting. So I added like a big shadow over here. So I just decided to go ahead and fix all the shading, and someone mentioned that you can add like a really big shadow here to make it more contrasty. And another last thing I added was a highlight of blue. Instead of yellow highlights that I used to have, blue into her shoes, into a little bit her skin, a little bit into her hair. That makes it so much more believable. Another last thing you want to do, I love doing this, is adding the saturation to the bright to darkness, and I add the layer, go into saturation, I go all the way up, so it only affects saturation. No matter what color you pick, it's only going to look at the saturation. And a lot of times between super dark and super bright image, it will be having this streak of difference, and I love to add a little bit of this. If you have a finger and you press it right here, you can see that it's turning red because of all the blood and everything. This is subsurface scattering. We can take a artistic liberty and still add it, especially for skin. We can add it for skin, like all the changes. When it goes to super dark to super bright, we can add this, play around with the color, and I just like to add it to everything. Personally, it's a lot of fun. And there's one more thing that I really want to emphasize on, is gonna be checking for black and white contrast. It's really important that your image reads without the saturation, still in the same way as if there was color. There's a very easy way to check this. I usually go into a new layer, I go into all the way down for color, and I just pick either black or white, and then right here there's gonna be a color fill. Boom, we have ourselves a black and white image, and I put this at the very top so I can just turn it on and turn it off at all times. And as you can see, for the most part, there's not too many things that blend together. The color is separate from the arms, the face is separate from the hair. It also helps a lot to the fact that I have very thick lines between and this little outline that I added. Sometimes it's not always this perfect. So for example, the dress and the belt is almost the same, but if I brighten this belt up, then it will start blending in with the shirt. If I make this lighter, it will start blending in with the skin. So in a way, I can add this by separating this with light. So maybe there's a light hitting the dress on top. Maybe I'll even add this line right here and just continue it just a little bit. So now these parts are a little bit separated, and in a way it works because it's stylized and it's not like a realistic painting. So I personally like this effect. I really liked working on this and just getting back into the swing of things. I haven't really posted in a long time. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this will inspire you to make your own painting with bright colors, and overall just have fun at it and just keep painting and keep drawing.